American History Retold, Introduction, Failures in the New World. For more than a century, the English, both crown and subjects, watched jealously as Spanish treasure ships delivered great wealth in silver and gold from the Americas to the king in Madrid. The Spanish were following up on the discoveries of the Genoan sea captain Christopher Columbus, who had reached the New World in 1492. The Spanish monarchs poured money into the resulting colonization that allowed for the conquest of native populations in Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and even parts of South America. For those same Spanish monarchs, such as Philip II, the payoff was enormous, as wealth arrived, literally, by the ton. But throughout most of the 16th century, the English rulers did almost nothing in support of similar colonization in America. By the 1970s and 80s, with Queen Elizabeth I rising to the throne, the do-nothing legacy of her predecessors was about to make a change. Gentlemen of Adventure. The English were beginning to move. Soon, English fishermen were casting their nets along Canada's Grand Banks, while English privateers were casting theirs in search of Spanish treasure ships to attack. Some of these privateers had the ear of good Queen Bess. They were gentlemen in Elizabeth's court. They included aristocrats such as Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir Humphrey Gilbert. There were the sons of wealthy merchants such as John Hawkins and Francis Drake. These men, called sea dogs, became favorites of the Queen through their sea raids against the Spanish. They all wanted to, as noted by historian Peter Hoffer, singe King Philip's beard. Each established his own reputation prying on the Spanish. John Hawkins raided from the coast of West Africa to the Spanish-controlled islands of the Caribbean until he was killed in a sea battle against the Spanish off the Mexican coast near the Yucatan. Next, Elizabeth dispatched Francis Drake in 1577. Drake had already engaged in raids against the Spanish a few years earlier. Among his most daring was an attack on a mule train along the coast of Panama, which netted Drake a fortune in Peruvian silver. But his greatest exploits were yet to come. Commanding 6 ships, he became a terror to the Spanish. Their treasure ships were, notes Hoffer, like chickens caught in a henhouse by a fox. Commanding from the deck of his flagship, the Golden Hind, Drake became legendary. He attacked Spanish ports in Central America and raided settlements along the coast of South America, including Valparaiso, Chile, and Lima, Peru. When he believed Spanish ships would be waiting for him on his return to Caribbean waters, Drake chose to sail around the southern tip of the continent. After considering a colony near the site of modern-day San Francisco, Drake sailed out into the vast South Sea, the Pacific Ocean, to the Philippines, yet another Spanish target. His voyage would take him fully around the world. He sailed around Africa, and he returned to Elizabeth's court with a vast cargo of East Indian spices and Spanish silver, booty worth half her income for an entire year. The English look to North America. While treasure reached English coffers through the daring deeds of their sea dogs, Spain was still the dominant power in the Americas. By the 1580s, another of Elizabeth's courtiers, Sir Humphrey Gilbert, convinced her to pursue another strategy in the New World. Gilbert had already sent, in 1576, Martin Frobisher, an English sea captain, to North America in search of an all-water route through the region to the Pacific Ocean, and the effort had failed. Gilbert suggested that raiding was not the answer. Instead, he would establish a series of military colonies along the North American coast, a kind of picket line, to keep the Spanish from moving further north from Florida. These colonies would also establish friendly relations with local Indians and trade with them. The English would convert them to Protestant Christianity. The Spanish were converting their Indians to Catholicism. In the meantime, Gilbert would use such colonies as bases of support while he searched for North American treasure. No one had yet discovered vast quantities of gold and silver in the north as the Spanish had in the south. But Gilbert was certain he would be the first. Queen Elizabeth had her lawyers draw up a contract for colonization with Sir Humphrey. The English were going to colonize North America at last, and Gilbert's contracts would grant him the sole right to colonize there in the name of the Queen. But things did not go well for Gilbert. The Queen did not agree to pay for his efforts to establish colonies. His contract with the Crown did help him find willing investors, however. One of those investors was Sir Walter Raleigh. Gilbert was able to raise a small fleet of ships and made plans to sail to North America. His first attempt failed completely, as his ships did not even reach America before turning back. Then, in 1583, he managed to reach Newfoundland with 3 small ships. There he claimed land he named St. John's for his queen. Unfortunately, the luckless Gilbert and his tiny New World fleet were soon lost at sea in a violent storm. Once word of the perish of Gilbert and his fleet reached England, another of Elizabeth's courtiers stepped forward. Walter Raleigh soon petitioned the Queen for permission to take over Gilbert's contract to explore and colonize North America. He was, after all, Gilbert's half-brother. The Queen agreed. Raleigh spent the next 20 years planning and replanning for establishing colonies in North America, but he did not wait long to take his first steps. Unlike Gilbert, Raleigh would not go to the New World himself. He would send others. Raleigh assembled, notes historian James Horne, a remarkable group of men who brought together scientific knowledge and practical experience. They would include an Oxford scientist, Thomas Harriot, John White, a young artist, and Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow, both excellent seamen. Raleigh sent these men and others on 2 small boats to the Southern American coast during the summer of 1584. Raleigh chose a place in which to plant a colony along the mid-Atlantic coast. It is not clear why he chose that location. He may have been trying to avoid the problems his half-brother encountered further north. He may also have been interested in establishing a colony to meet the challenge of the Spanish to the south head-on. Such a colony could serve as a launching point for additional raids against Spanish silver ships. This was an important part of the colonizing plan. One could not depend on profits scratched out of the wilderness by a tiny English outpost, but the capture of a single Spanish silver ship might yield a prize worth 10 or 15,000 pounds, perhaps 2 or 3 times that amount. Harriet, White, and the others selected a spot along the modern-day North Carolina coast between the Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds, called the Outer Banks. Between these 2 bays, they reached an island they called Roanoke. Things looked so promising for the new colony that the new arrivals decided to name the land they occupied as Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen. Elizabeth had never married. But even as the boats reached the island, Indians were watching them from the mainland. Raleigh and Roanoke. This first voyage was merely a scouting mission. The following year, Raleigh dispatched more than 100 colonists to Roanoke Island. They were under the command of Ralph Lane, a professional soldier. Lane was excited about what he saw when he landed at Roanoke. They reported back to England in September 1585 that the colony was located on the goodliest and most pleasing territory of the world. The local Indians were supportive, and the climate was mild, and there was little sickness among the colonists. New World illnesses, especially fevers, were a common problem in such colonies. Lane believed that if the colony succeeded, no realm in Christendom would rival it. The colonists, for all their excitement about the colony's potential, expected to find gold on the lands they occupied. One of their number was a Jewish mineral expert, Joachim Gans. He was supposed to search for gold and silver. To transplant English society in the New World, the colonists also included not only carpenters and farmers, but also winemakers and druggists. All did not remain well at Roanoke. Building the colony was difficult work. There were frequent storms, and the colonists had arrived too late to plant crops for food. Despite hopeful beginnings, the colonists and the local Indians clashed. The colonists relied on native gifts of food for too long, and the Indians became anxious about their own food stores running low. When the Indians cut off food to the English settlers, Ralph Lane chose to attack the local village in the spring of 1586, killing the chief of the Roanokes. This set the colonists and the Indians permanently against one another. That summer, the colonists, nearly starved, were picked up by Francis Drake, who happened by on a chance. Raleigh's first attempt to colonize at Roanoke had failed. A second colony. Raleigh's attempt to colonize Roanoke in 1585 and 1586 had collapsed, but the intrepid colonizer was not completely discouraged. He planned again and soon mounted another colonizing enterprise. While he had only opened his original colony to men, this time he allowed women and children as well. By the spring of 1587, everything was in place. He had lined up 150 men, plus their family members, including 2 wives who were pregnant. Some of the recruits were not new at all, such as the artist John White, who signed on again. He and Thomas Harriot had produced a book titled Brief and True Report of the New Found Land of Virginia, which White had illustrated. It served as an advertisement for recruitment. The new colony was to be named the City of Raleigh and the Colony of Virginia. Raleigh even had a special coat of arms commissioned for his New World city. In April, the party set sail for America. They were not to return to the same location as the earlier colony, however. The ship's captain, Simon Fernandez, was to land the party north of Roanoke Island, somewhere in the Chesapeake Bay region. However, Fernandez dumped the colonists off near the original Roanoke site so he could sail south and engage in a raid against Spanish silver ships. This change in plans was only the beginning of problems for the new Roanoke colony. As with the earlier colony, the English colonists arrived too late to plant a food crop. Too many of them spent too much time searching for gold. Supplies ran extremely low. The colonists begged White to return to England and bring back fresh supplies. White agreed, but postponed his departure until his married daughter gave birth to his grandchild, a baby girl named Virginia Dare. She was the first English baby born in the New World. But once White returned to England for much-needed supplies, he was soon caught up in an international crisis. War broke out between Spain and England. In time, the Spanish monarch, King Philip II, sent his armada to attack England. Needing all available ships, the crown would not allow White to leave for Roanoke until 1590. Once he made his way back to the Virginia colony, it was too late. The colony was abandoned, and all the colonists he had left behind, including his daughter, son-in-law, and grandchild, had vanished. On a post he discovered the word Croatian carved into the wood. The Croatians were a local Indian tribe. No one is certain what happened to the colonists even today. History would one day refer to the second effort by Raleigh to colonize in the Americas as the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Yet even before the news of the lost colony reached Sir Walter Raleigh back in England, he had already determined to give up New World colonizing altogether. Much money had been spent, and everything had turned to dust. There were no riches to be had in North America, he decided. By 1589, Raleigh formally transferred his rights to establish a New World colony to a group of 19 investors. The majority of them were wealthy London merchants. But these new investors made no sudden moves toward America. They studied their options and bided their time. The 16th century ended, and still no new colonial attempt was made. Raleigh himself knew what the problem was. He wrote, notes historian James Horne, "No man makes haste to the market where there is nothing to be bought but blows."